Exposed. Blame for Maine's illegal cop shifts to the DHS and Massachusetts law. Let's dig in.
To new developments in the case of an Old Orchard Beach police officer arrested by ICE. The Department of Homeland Security continues to blast the police department for hiring someone they shouldn't have, but the police department is fighting back. Fox 23's Julia Simone joins us now live from Old Orchard Beach, where town officials say they followed all the correct procedures in this hire. Julia.
Marissa, the chief and town manager kept coming back to one word: disappointed, not only in the way their department is criticized, but also in the lack of communication from the Department of Homeland Security, which is also in charge of ICE.
I'm not sure what other system that they would want us to start considering, and if there is one, then they need to communicate that.
ICE says John Luke Evans was arrested after he tried to buy a gun last week. He was buying the weapon because he had been hired as a summer reserve officer for the Old Orchard Beach Police Department. Immigration officials have blasted OOB for hiring him, without offering any specifics about what the town should have done. OOB's town manager says before they hired Evans, he provided all the necessary paperwork to be a reserve officer and passed a background check.
What he provided was his birth certificate, a valid driver's license, his passport, his U.S. Social Security card, his I-76 U.S. work authorization, which it's an employment authorization document, which showed that it was valid till 2030. And then he also provided just some other additional, proof of credit and a resume.
Most importantly, they say Evans was cleared by the Department of Homeland Security to work through the DHS E-Verify program, the only such program in place for them to use. We reached out to DHS and didn't get a response, but the acting director of ICE blasted the OOB Police Department on a conservative talk radio show for using the E-Verify system.
So I know that the town has said that he checked out in E-Verify. Well, the problem is he came under the Biden administration.
He went on to say that the police department should have used, quote, common sense and not the system the federal government requires.
We did everything that we would normally do and everything we are required to do, and we were given the okay that he was all set to work. We would never give somebody who was not vetted and not approved. We wouldn't, first of all, hire them, and second of all, we would never give them a firearm.
And the police chief confirmed there's no other immigrant officers on their staff. And we also obtained Evans' personal file, and there is nothing unusual in it. Live in Old Orchard Beach, Julia Simone, Fox 23 News at 10. Marissa?
Julia, thank you for the update.
Welcome to the Maine Perspective. I'm Drew Hoagland, and today we're doing a follow-up video from a video that I covered last week. Last week's video detailed how an Old Orchard Beach police officer was able to become a police officer even though he was an illegal immigrant. He had no paperwork to be here to work, and we only caught him because he tried to buy a gun, which was illegal under the status that he was here. Some might wonder how he was able to become a police officer at all, myself included, and that left me flabbergasted in the last video. And it seemed as if Maine had done us dirty, that they had just been trying to fill positions and they did it by any means necessary. However, as you've already seen from the previous video, and as we're going to detail in an article in just a minute, that's not the case. Maine police, the Maine government isn't even to blame. What they did was federally acceptable. And some people want to try and put the blame back onto the state of Maine, being like, oh, use common sense. But the law is there so that you know exactly what to do. Because as we've seen in the previous years, common sense is not so common anymore. So to use an excuse like that, it's weak. It's weak. Let's just say that. So we already heard from a video, but I want to dig into a little bit just with the article to give a little bit more coverage. I've been trying to avoid using paywalls. I have downloaded I have downloaded Ground News and I've been using that. The unfortunate part is you still hit all of these paywalls. Paywall, paywall, paywall. So you're given the information. Ground News does a great job of breaking it down so you don't necessarily need to read the article, because Bangor Daily News is awful for it. Paywall, paywall, paywall. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't want to have to read pertinent news to me through a paywall. And you have to pay all of these different companies because Bangor Daily News, I don't trust them. So if I want to get their point of view, I have to pay them. But then I also have to have a counter one that I pay. Luckily, Ground News does a great job of keeping in the middle, giving it all right up front so you don't need the paywall. But it's annoying. So it actually took me a couple minutes to try and find this non-paywall article about the Maine illegal immigrant here working in Old Orchard Beach as a police officer. This is from Boston Herald by Lance Reynolds. Maine illegal immigrant cops arrest reignites backlash over Bay State driver's license law. As a Maine police department dukes it out with the feds over the recent arrest of one of its own, backlash has reignited over a law that allows illegal immigrants in Massachusetts to gain driver's licenses. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation has reiterated that the Registry of Motor Vehicles does not request information on or track immigration status for standard license applications or holders. Bay State Republican commentators argue the lax approach opened the door for Jamaican national John Luke Evans to gain a job with the Old Orchard Beach Police Department as a seasonal reserve officer in the coastal Maine resort town. Evans is said to have provided a Massachusetts driver's license in the spring when applying for the role that he began earlier this summer. Agents with ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations Boston Bureau arrested the officer in late July after he allegedly tried to buy a gun for the position. Evans also submitted his Jamaican birth certificate and passport, U.S. Social Security and work authorization cards, and proof of college credits to Old Orchard's Human Resources as part of the applications, officials have said. The feds accuse Evans of overstaying his visa, but officials in Old Orchard Beach argue the police department had been notified by the Department of Homeland Security during the hiring review that his work permit cleared him to be employed in the U.S. until March 2030. Republican critics in Massachusetts say the debacle may have been avoided if not for the so-called Work and Family Mobility Act, which provides a pathway to driver's licenses for illegal immigrants who can provide some form of documentation. Without a valid driver's license from Massachusetts, this illegal alien may not have qualified to become a police officer in Maine, Mass GOP chairwoman Amy Carnival said in a statement shared with the Herald. Massachusetts Republicans urge the Commonwealth to rethink the wisdom of granting driver's licenses to illegal aliens. The risks are just too great, she added. A Mass DOT spokesperson told the Herald on Sunday that the RMV received notice from Maine in May that this individual applied for a Maine license. Whenever the RMV receives notice that its license holder has received an out-of-state credential, it immediately acts to rescind the Massachusetts license. Under the Work and Family Mobility Act, which the state legislature passed in May 2022 and took effect in July 2023, individuals in the U.S. without legal status can obtain a standard 5-year Massachusetts driver's license if they provide at least 2 documents proving their identity and place of birth. At least 19 states and the District of Columbia allow illegal aliens to gain driver's licenses. Evans entered the U.S. on September 24, 2023 at Miami International Airport, but he violated the terms of his lawful admission when he overstayed his visa, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has said. Evans was scheduled to deport the U.S. on October 1st, 2023, but he never boarded the flight. Maine is more than one of a dozen states in the U.S. that allow non-citizens to work in law enforcement. Mass DOT told the Herald that the RMV does not request or track immigration status on driver's licenses when asked to provide the number of licenses issued to illegal immigrants since the law's implementation. The Transportation Department instead provided data showing the total number of driver's licenses issued over the past years. Within the first year of the law, 387,284 people were provided to applicants across the state, up from the 270,012 the year before. The number dropped to 326,131 between July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. Governor Maura Healey's administration declined to comment on Evans' arrest in Maine and how it believes the Work and Family Mobility Act has fared over its first 2 years. The fact that Governor Healey's administration doesn't track illegal immigrants who obtain a Massachusetts driver's license is by design and not an oversight. Paul Diego Craney, spokesman for state watchdog, the Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance, told the Herald. Former Governor Charlie Baker warned the public about this law when it was before him as legislation, Craney added. He vetoed it, but Governor Healey has taken the opposite approach and embraced it for use for political purposes. Lawmakers overruled Baker's objections, opening the opportunity for those without legal status to seek driver's licenses. I cannot sign this legislation because it requires the Registry of Motor Vehicles to issue state credentials to people without the ability to verify their identity, Baker said in a veto letter. The registry does not have the expertise or ability to verify the validity of many types of documents from other countries. Language included in the Work and Family Mobility Act bars the state from releasing any information related to a Massachusetts license holder, documentation that had been considered public and easily accessible from Mass DOT before the law went into effect. Supporters have said it's necessary to keep the information of Massachusetts drivers private to protect their immigration status, or lack thereof. Republican gubernatorial candidate Brian Shortsleeve told the Herald that he would seek to repeal the law if he is elected as the next governor. It sends the wrong message, undermines the rule of law, and comes with real security and voting risks, he said. The insanity ends when I'm governor. Once again, that's from the Boston Herald on August 4th, 2024. It says it all there. I don't know what else to add because it is insane. In Maine, in my opinion, the police did not do anything wrong. Massachusetts did the wrong thing, and DHS backed them up, allowing Massachusetts to do the wrong thing. And that's not just my opinion. That is common sense. I mean, we don't even know how good they can drive, and they're given driver's licenses without even any tests. There's just so many things that are wrong with this, and I want to know your opinion. What is the most glaring thing that sticks out to you? Something that really, really just churns your stomach about this, because to me, there's a lot about it. And I unfortunately jumped on the bandwagon and was blaming the Maine Police Department before this, but I take that back. I don't think they did anything wrong. Maybe now knowing this, there are things they can do going forward, but they did everything they were supposed to do when they were doing it, so you can't blame them. Massachusetts, however, lay it on thick. And the DHS especially for backing them up, because I mean, theoretically, if the DHS had it, Massachusetts wouldn't have. So the DHS is ultimately the bad guy. Massachusetts had this law that allowed the DHS to exploit it, and then Maine was a victim of it. And I'm not even saying anything about John Luke Evans. I don't know what kind of individual he is. He was trying to purchase a gun when he shouldn't have, and I think that would have been made clear to him. So I am sus about that. However, Massachusetts and the DHS are to blame here, not Maine. And that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Go ahead, do the usual things, like, comment, share, subscribe. Each one of those things really helps this growing channel. And until the next video, y'all, this has been Drew Hoagland with the Maine Perspective.
Ready? Fight!